This is the Hello World podcast, where we talk about habits of success, habits of excellence, entrepreneurship, leadership, learning and development, and outlook that will help us succeed through life. This is Louis Banta, CEO and Chief Trainer of Learning Just Made Better, or LJMB. This is episode 5. How do we lead an organization and transform the organization to make sure it adapts and it thrives in the changing environment? We have been privileged to have as a guest the former CEO of RCBC Bankcard, which is among the top 5 local credit card players in terms of spend. He was CEO of Bankcard from 2016 up to 2020. He is currently the Executive Vice President and Head of Consumer Lending of RCBC. He's also a health and sports buff. He's into bodybuilding and arm wrestling, into boxing and jiu-jitsu, and also plays football. When he's not busy leading teams and not busy with his sports routine, he is at home playing with his daughter, spending quality time with Isabel. Our guest this afternoon, Simon Calasanz. Welcome, Simon, to Hello World Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Louis.
It's been a pleasure to have worked with Simon for the past 3 years, since 2017. To our listeners who are joining us in this episode, Simon is who I would consider as one of my leadership idols. And Simon, I have expressed this to you. Yes, you are a welcome addition to my list of leadership idols. Simply because of... Yes, totoo yan, no? Totoo yan. And of course, the others are people who don't know me, big names, even global names. So I'm really privileged to have known Simon in our work with him in RCBC Bankcard. One thing that I noticed with Simon is that he's really mild-mannered. And I cannot imagine a CEO who heads hundreds of people in an organization, subject to a lot of pressure. Yes? And here you have an organization to transform, yet soft-spoken and mild-mannered. Simon, that's my new question to you. I know it's not part of our guide questions. How do you do it? How do you maintain that kind of composure?
Okay, so that's a very good question, Louis. There are times wherein you have to make very tough decisions. The situation is, chaotic. And I think it's very important for the team to see that they have a leader who is calm, composed, and collected. Because if they see that your leader panics, then even they will panic. So I feel that I need to continue to show that the situation is under control and that there are ways out. So I feel that's very important to continue to show your team that, so that they continue to have confidence that they are in good hands.
Powerful 4 C's. Ganda. Calm, what is that? Composed and collected, which now equates to or produces that confidence that you need from people. In our partnership with you in the last 3 years, we were a witness to how you led Bankcard to get into that top 5, that coveted top 5. And I believe when we started doing culture transformation work with you, you were definitely not part of the top 5.
Yes, that's right.
And you even led Bankcard to overachieve. Was it an understatement? Even overachieve its targets. And I'm preempting you, Simon. Please just correct me. You're even ahead of your deadline to reach your number 1 metric by a full year.
That's correct. That's correct.
So, wow, really blown away. This is organizational transformation inside and outside, because the stakeholders are witnessing it, no? Customers, the industry, in the YGC, the Yuchenko group of companies, you have been heralded because of that achievement. if we will guide other executives out there who are currently or who will be doing organizational change, what's the top three secret ingredients in that successful 4-year run?
Okay, so again, to put things in perspective, when I first joined Bankcard, it was an okay organization. It was doing okay. It was making a profit. But in terms of where we wanted to be or where I felt we could take the organization, it was definitely underperforming. So at that time, we were, I think, eighth in the industry in terms of several key metrics.
Mhm.
We felt that, in time, if we implement the right kinds of strategies, that we could definitely take it into top five
Mhm.
within 5 years of certain key metrics
Mhm.
in the card industry. So the things that I felt we had to bring to the table to ensure that we met those goals were, one, of course, putting in a solid strategy,
Mhm.
one that can stand the test of time. Because some things that you will see in organizations that fail is parang every 2 or 3 years nagpapalit sila ng strategy.
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
definitely something that you want to avoid. You want to have something that can stand the test of time. And
Mhm.
you have a problem if you need to keep on changing that strategy.
Mhm.
At the same time, it should be flexible enough that you can make tweaks as you go along.
Okay.
So, second, and this is something that you've shown us during your workshops, culture transformation. Because culture eats strategy for breakfast. Doesn't that sound familiar, Louis?
Peter
So,
Drucker. Mhm.
yes, of course. So it's very important because we felt that even if we had the right strategy, if the culture within the organization was not the right culture, that would enable proper execution of these strategies, and we would fail.
Mhm.
So undergoing that transformation journey to me was very important.
Mhm.
And then third, it's really changing the mindset of the organization.
Mhm.
Because many within the organization, even among the senior leaders, were kind of happy with where they were.
Mhm.
They were happy being profitable, but they didn't think of themselves as the type of organization or the type of group that could become a top player in the
Mhm.
industry. So I said,
Mhm.
we need to change that. We need to have a winning mindset.
Mhm.
And we also started having small workshops with regard to uh, having the winning mindset in the
Mhm.
organization.
Okay.
And I have a funny story that I like to tell
Go
with
ahead.
regard to, I think you've heard this, with regard to arm wrestling.
Okay.
Uh, so I think it was maybe 4 years ago that I had joined an arm wrestling competition wherein typically an arm wrestling competition will have weight classes, right? You have lightweight, middleweight, and heavyweight.
Mhm.
For some reason, there were not enough participants to make those three weight classes. So everybody was put into one big weight class.
Okay.
So me, I typically compete in the lightweight weight
Mhm.
class. So I was thinking to myself, there's no way I'm going to win this competition.
Mhm.
So
How many classes, Simon? How many
typically
weight classes?
three. So
3.
lightweight, middleweight, heavyweight.
Okay.
So I was thinking to myself, no way I will win this competition. But
With
uh,
heavyweights, no, in the pool.
yes, with
Okay.
heavyweights.
Mhm.
Because they put us all
Pool the
into
pool.
one
Mhm.
category.
Mhm.
So at the end of the tournament, I placed fourth. So imagine I had to compete against middleweights and heavyweights, and yet I
Mhm.
did well.
Mhm.
Uh, I was thinking to myself, that's okay because kalaban ko mga heavyweight.
Mhm.
And however, what is strange? The eventual champion of that competition was a
Uh-huh.
guy who was lighter than me. So this guy was like 145 pounds.
Okay.
And, to me, that changed my mindset because
Mhm.
I entered that competition thinking that I wouldn't win it.
Mhm.
But this guy didn't put that uh, mental barrier on himself.
Mhm.
He didn't care if he was a lightweight. In the finals, he went up against a 230-pound bouncer and still
Okay.
won. So to me, that was a very powerful story that I shared with people in Bankcard about having
Mm.
a winning mindset. You might not have all the right tools,
Okay.
but if you enter into a fight thinking that you will lose, you will lose. So
Okay.
you need to change that mindset and think that, hey, I can win this. So yes.
Interesting story. Just to delve on that a bit, it's possible that somebody as light as 145 can beat the 235.
Yes,
It was. It's not pure strength. What is it if it's not just pure arm strength?
Okay, so arm wrestling, you have the basic requirement is you have to be strong.
Okay.
But on top of strength, there is a lot of technique, endurance, and skill that is required to win an arm wrestling competition. So,
Okay.
like me, I did win against people who are much heavier than me during that day.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Just this is new to me. I just heard of this. First time I heard of this one. So again, linking it. Yes, nobody's exempted. Even you enter that competition. You look around you. You notice what's visible. It's very easy to really say, okay, have that defeatist mindset,
Exactly.
and how you also use that story in your continuing journey, inspiring people we can place in the top
Yes.
from 8 in the industry, now
Yes.
within top 5 in less than 5 years. Your target
Correct.
is 5 years. I cannot congratulate you that frequent to really emphasize how I really admire this one. You mentioned 3 things: solid strategy, good parallelism. Arm wrestling is not just about strength, also about tactics, techniques, and strategy. You mentioned about culture and mindset. I know how that two overlaps because culture, the foundation is how people think.
Correct.
And you mentioned culture as part of the 3, but in a scale of 1 to 10, how much of the success is because of culture? If we will just isolate culture with the other things, because you've done a lot. I know that systems improved, IT was also part of the pieces.
Yeah.
What else? Branding and marketing, and I also saw how the sales organization of Bankcard
That's right.
transformed itself. So culture, in a scale of 1 to 10, how much is the contribution of
Okay.
culture?
I would say it's like a 8 to 9. Very important because all those other things that you mentioned, if you do it without transforming your culture, much of the upside that you will get will be short lived.
Mm-hmm.
And you won't be able to continue it in the organization. So it'll be like you're constantly on a hamster wheel,
Okay.
as opposed to changing the culture, changing the mindset. So even if I leave now, I've left Bankcard, and I still feel very comfortable that they will continue to show gains and grow, even without me in the organization.
What's
So
one thing that
very
you
important.
like most in the transformation journey?
Okay.
Maybe that,
Well,
not just 1, 2, or 3 things that you like most. Steering the team.
Yes. So several things. I mean, seeing the actual results, like the actual KPIs and the business results, it showed that what we were doing was paying off. And you saw more smiles in the hallway. You saw that people were being open. You saw much more collaboration. And this is something that I usually have. I would have coffee talks with my people on a monthly basis. And they always show appreciation that they like it that I talk to them and I listen to them,
Mm-hmm.
and that they felt that they were part of the journey. So they were taking ownership of the journey as well.
Because usually a new leader comes in and of course is tasked to transform the organization depending on what previous state the company is in. And then, of course, we've heard of stories in other organizations when leaders, with their desire to change, people don't appreciate it. It has the opposite effect. And I'm hearing from you now, people go to you, people express their appreciation. And I have been a witness that people will really cite that one of the reasons for success to our listeners, Simon's is very, very humble here. No? People will say one of the reasons for success is his leadership. Okay? In other organizations, it's the opposite. The opposite happens. People want to change, but they feel that they're being forced. What was in terms of daily tactics and implementation in interacting with people? How did that transformation go in
Okay, so,
day-to-day interactions with people?
very good question. To me, it was very important in the first 6 months of my move to show that I was there to listen.
Okay.
And this goes part of my leadership style, which is you need to be a good communicator. So being a communicator, it goes two ways. One is having good listening skills, but at the same time also being able to communicate your message to your people. So during the first 6 months, it was, taking everything in, listening to all the feedback, and then skipping levels. So you can't just speak to your one downs. You need to speak all the way down the line. And that's how I composed those copy sessions. So there were people in middle management, people from the senior team, but people all the way down to the newest hire in terms of clerical tasks in the office. And I gave all feedback equal importance. So it was when I showed the team that I would listen to their feedback and do something about it. It wasn't just lip service. That I started gaining their trust. And to me, that was very important. So I was able to gain their trust, and I also showed them that I trusted them too. In which ways? I would listen to their opinions, because for a very long time, many of the decisions were being made just from the top. But my philosophy there is I don't want to have to make all the decisions for the team. So the reason why you're a senior manager there is so that you can make those decisions. So if I make all the decisions, then I don't need a senior manager, right? And sometimes you also need to allow them to make small mistakes. So yun, nakikita mo na that they might make a mistake, but you don't catch them. You let them make those mistakes. And those then become very teachable moments. And they can be very powerful and profound experiences for those people. Of course, you need to weigh the risk. Of course.
Yeah, you mentioned small mistakes.
Yes, yes. So the operative word there is small. So, and by giving them that trust, you also earn their trust even more. So that goes to another leadership style of mine, which is really trust and empowerment.
And you gave us a lot. Wow, listening, but not just listening, but doing something about it. And what struck me, Simon, is that you mentioned first 6 months. It was listening and then doing something about it. When, of course, with my exposure with several organizations, a lot of people really want to create change and impact and produce results in the short term. Results in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and 5 months. I didn't hear in my first 6 months, I wanted to really see the KPIs move. What I heard from you is listening, getting all the feedback. And then I assumed that doing something about it meant quick wins. You also have to do some tweaking along the way.
Yes.
And making, to our listeners, it's making small mistakes. Powerful enough to learn a lesson, but small enough not to have a big impact on the business.
That's right.
Okay. I'm still getting to know you as a leader, and I'm glad that I really had this opportunity, because I really met a lot of leaders in the course of my work here in the Philippines. Some have a similar style with yours. Others may have difficulty with letting people make small mistakes. Talagang a lot of perfectionists, and they will see people, they will come in and intervene. Yes, just reinforces my learning from you again. Not just cool and collected, but to our leader listeners out there, let people make mistakes that they can learn from. Small mistakes that they can learn from.
Yeah.
Okay? For 6 months, I was not able to witness this, Simon, right? Because I came in on your second year.
That's right.
And I'm sure that culture transformation started before that. No? And it was just the workshops that we were able to really take care of. Okay? Anything that you can add on that? I really wanted to say more.
So we were talking about how during the first 6 months I was listening, etc. But you also mentioned it. At the same time, there were many other small things that I felt we could do already, which would have a profound impact already on the P&L of Bankcard. So, as I was doing these changes, I was gaining the trust of the team. They could also see the other KPIs improving, profitability was improving. So it was two-pronged. So they could see the effects on the people side, they could see the effects on the P&L side. So the compounding effect was very positive in terms of gaining the trust of the team.
And when you're leading a team through change, it's also important to point out what you just said, the small improvements. You're moving the needle because that really enables people to say, wow, this guy is doing the right thing. The first 6 months, listening and doing quick wins. What's your like list? If earlier it's what you like most in the 4-year culture transformation journey, there must be some like lists or challenges or difficulties. Let's just acknowledge that.
Yes. So, like all transformation journeys, that's why you call it a journey, because it takes time. We are entering our 5th year of that journey, and I'd say we're probably only 60-70% there. But to me, that's already tremendous progress compared to where we were before.
I was about to interrupt you and say, that's just 60 to 70% when you are more than 1 year ahead of your target.
Yes. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, there is never any rest in the search for excellence.
Okay, agree.
So that's something that, we will continue to chase and dream about.
Okay.
But like you said, in terms of challenges, yes, there were naysayers. There were people who initially didn't buy into it. There were people who said, we've been doing things like this for the longest time. Why do we need to change it? But that's precisely the reason why we had to change things, because we had a different goal. We just didn't want to. We weren't happy just being where we were. We weren't happy being number 8. So to be among the top 5, we indeed had to make changes. And when these people started seeing the results being improved number of applications, improved delinquency, improved profitability, then it also started, winning hearts and minds and getting more people to subscribe to the strategy.
Okay. And I could imagine the stakeholders that you would also need to manage. And just assuming, Simon, that what I observe in others, big enterprises, there is a mother company, yes, and there are also some constraints, that we have to align or adhere with the bigger organization. How were you able to ensure that the alignment and adherence is there? Which could at times, and correct me if I'm wrong, at times you may want to do something different because you are you need to innovate, but there could be some constraints with the bigger enterprise.
So
Have you experienced that, and how
uh,
did you deal with it?
okay, so I like that question because when I first joined Bankcard, that was also one of the questions that I had uh, from the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So to the people who interviewed me, I said, how much control would I have over the business? And they told me, it's your show as long as you don't screw it, screw it up. So, to me, that was very important
Mm-hmm.
because that made me feel empowered as well, that I had their trust for as long as I didn't mess things up. So
Mm-hmm.
because I had their trust, I was also very careful in terms of all the strategies that we implemented. And I made sure, I made 100% sure that these were definitely the right things that we wanted to do for the
Mm-hmm.
company longer term.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, having the trust from the top is indeed very important. And how is it that I keep them informed? I have regular update meetings
Mm-hmm.
with them. So on a monthly basis and on a quarterly basis, we keep them updated on the business results
Mm-hmm.
and on the high level strategies. And they will provide feedback every now and then. And we do need to make some tweaks. But overall, there is a lot of alignment, which just made my job a lot easier.
Going back to culture, one of the things that is very difficult to change and control is culture. There is a tendency at times to slide back, or to,
Yes.
when you have momentum, then something happens, and that you see a downtrend as well in terms of behaviors. Has that happened? Have you seen that happen in your journey?
Oh,
And
yes, many
what did
times.
you do?
Many times. And
Okay.
um, that's one of the reasons why we came out with the leadership team norms, which you helped us create. So when we came up with the leadership team norms, we knew that they were very powerful. We knew that these were the right team norms, but then we also knew that there would be days that we would fail to
Mm.
practice them. So what we did was we posted it uh, on all the walls. We would have reinforcement workshops, and we told the management team, you need to live it, you need to breathe it.
Mm.
Uh, so when you dream, you dream about the leadership team norms, and there will be days that we forget,
Mm.
and that's okay. But we need to remember that at the end of the day, these are the things that will take us to where we need to be in the future. And that was fine. That was part of the journey. Failing was part of the journey. But by reinforcing it uh, almost constantly, eventually we got to that stage wherein it already became a habit
Mm.
for most of the people in the organization.
And for the benefit of our listeners, I had a chance to really work with Simon's management committee in 2017 in an offsite session. I believe it was a common sentiment that we did not expect to be able to build all of those output in just 1.5 days.
Correct.
When most of us have been accustomed to 3-4 day workshops with lots of output on PowerPoint, but we just built service philosophy, a statement of how the organization Bankcard commits to servicing its customers with their powerful hashtag. And it's not complicated. And yes, doing business with customers should really not be complicated. And the commitment of this team, especially Simon who drove it, is to put the team norms in big posters on the walls. I know that that's not something new because we've seen vision, mission statements before. But the powerful thing is when we get into the annual workshops that we do with their employees, even to the lowest level, people know most, if not all, of the team norms because we would give on-the-spot team quizzes. Memorize nila yan, Simon, ano?
Correct.
Memorize
Yes.
nila yan. Saka they will look at the situation and then they will know this is in adherence to this team norm, leadership team norm. Of this is not solve it, fix it. Yes, this is
That's
not
right.
on time. Wow. What's your favorite leadership team norm of all of those?
Okay, so it's being open and being courageous. Because in Bankcard, a lot of people, and you'll see this in many organizations, wherein in meetings, people try to keep the peace by not speaking out. So I'm sure many people who are listening can relate to sitting into a meeting and then hearing something that they don't necessarily agree with, but then because nobody's speaking up, they just keep the thought to themselves and don't share it. And to me, based on experience, those are absolutely the right times to raise your concerns. So we need to be courageous at times to raise concerns. And many times they can cause conflict. But if it's conflict raised with your heart in the right place, then absolutely it's the right thing to do. And by doing this, we've made the organization a much stronger and more open organization, as opposed to keeping secrets and people trying to cover for each other. So I'm sure you hear the term, ay, linaglag mo naman ako eh. So
very common, no? Very common sa Filipino
yes.
organizations.
So it's not about laglagan, but it's more about calling out wrong behavior if it's happening. And by doing so, you really encourage the right kind of culture, wherein you reward good behavior and bad behavior is called out. So it just reinforces everything. Reinforces having the right kind of culture in your organization, which you want to have. That's my favorite.
What's the toughest task or toughest experience that you had in enforcing culture?
I would say when I myself failed in my role as a leader. So I had to go in front of staff and say, I failed in my role as your leader. So that was in being open and courageous as well. So there was a situation wherein we had failed to right size the team in terms of being able to allow them to process the number of applications that were coming through the door. So because of that, they were spending a lot of time doing overtime, and they raised that concern that we've been doing this for 6 months straight. So I said, yes, that's my failing as a leader. We weren't able to right size and do the capacity plan that was appropriate to ensure that you get to go home on time, you get to go home to your families. So I made the commitment right there. I told them, within X months, we will guarantee that your work hours should normalize. And that was achieved. So
in 6 months.
Yes, it was very difficult to go in front of the team and acknowledge that yes, a mistake was made, but I felt that I did have to do it, and I had to show that yes, I was vulnerable at that time, but I'm also human. But at the same time, yes, I do make mistakes, but I will ensure that we will fix those mistakes.
Really a show of humility for me, Simon, that you're saying this. A lot of the things I'm hearing in this more intimate interview is far from our just bumping into each other as you're about to deliver an opening message in a workshop. Really humbled by this incident of humility. And my takeaway here is culture. Nobody's above culture. When you set values and team norms there, even the CEO himself has to say, raise his hand, just like what Simon said. That's on me. No, we failed on this. That's on me. And eventually do something about it. A brutal fact that you can share to leaders out there who are in the middle of culture transformation or change implementation. What's the brutal fact that leaders have to really face when they're transforming, changing, adapting?
Okay, so we touched on this a little bit while we were going through some of your other questions, but it will take time. It will not happen overnight. It will be frustrating, and there will be people who will not subscribe to the cultural change journey right away.
Mhm.
But this is all part of the journey. You just need to take it in stride and show them that this indeed is the right way to go.
You had your frustrations as well, I suppose.
Yes, for sure.
What's the self-talk, Simon, when you were having that all of those frustrations? How does Simon Calasanz, how did you deal with all of those frustrations?
Okay, so I always like to think that there is a reason why these people are thinking this way. I always like to, if there's somebody who doesn't agree with me, or if there's somebody who has a different viewpoint, I always try to put myself in their shoes and try to understand the reason why they have that thought process or they have a different viewpoint. And by putting myself in their shoes, it puts me in a much better position to discuss and share with them the reasons why I think the way we're taking the organization is indeed the right place to take it. By having them understand that yes, I understand where they're coming from, and by starting from a place of commonality, we're then able to have a more constructive and better discussion as we take the discussion forward.
The one that hit me hard there was people may have different viewpoints. Still, you're into listening and understanding. I'm emphasizing this because I know that our listeners will also agree. A lot of leaders tend to impose their views, tend to really think, especially if there's a generation gap. I know better. I've been in this position. I've seen it. I've done it like that. For me, it's really empathy. And I'm hearing Simon here saying, empathize with people. Look at the things from their perspective.
Absolutely. Very important.
We talked about a lot of achievements that the organization Bankcard achieved through your leadership, with your leadership. We talked about the culture transformation journey. I also listed several descriptions of Simon Calasanz as a leader, from composed, cool, calm, collected, and then emphasizing his the importance that he places on being open and being courageous and in listening. Anything else, Simon, that somebody who may have a chance to work with you in the future needs to know? This is Simon Calasanz leadership style or leadership brand.
So we talked about, or we emphasized a lot in the discussion in terms of the first aspect of communication, which is listening. But the second most important part is also being able to tell your people the story of where you want to take the company. So it's really having a vision for the company and writing down that strategy, putting it down, and communicating it to the team. So that every last person in the organization knows about it. So you talked about it earlier. The team, they don't just know about the team norms, they also know about the key strategies of Bankcard. So you ask the data encoders, they will know it. You ask the people in the fraud team, they will know it. You talk to the people in collections, they will know the key strategies. I think that was important because they need to know how they fit in those strategies. And by knowing that, it again gives them ownership over the journey through which we wanted to take Bankcard. So again, communication, it goes both ways: listening and at the same time telling your story. Lastly, so we talked about trust and empowerment and the importance of being able to trust your leaders. But lastly, it's also having a very entrepreneurial approach in terms of management, and knowing that you need to learn how to balance risk versus reward. Because if you don't take any risk, edi ano mangyayari? Wala. Nothing. But at the same time, if you take too big of a risk, then you might lose your shirt the next day, right? So you have to be very careful. But
That's the screwing up that
yes,
was
yes,
given to you.
that's right. So you need to learn how to balance, and you need how to be entrepreneurial in your approach. And what helps me in this, it's really using data and analytics in those decisions. Because making decisions just because you feel like making those decisions, you can guarantee that you're not going to get anywhere. Unless you're like a magician who can predict the future, right? But if you base your decisions on data with good insight from your people, then that would definitely be the right approach that you should take when making management decisions. Make informed decisions.
Yeah, there's a lot to take in there, and to our listeners, I'm sure that you may look at Simon. Simon may strike you as somebody who's really, yes, mild mannered, tempered, yes, but make no mistake, he has very powerful analytical thinking. He just mentioned data and analytics. I was a witness to in that session, Simon, that I facilitated the first what was that idea generation session with the theme Got Talent. Remember that when you had
Yes,
teams who presented ideas which will help in different KPIs of the business. So I think the theme was, if time and money were not a constraint, what would you want to be able to implement? And the team really exceeded our expectations. No, they really owned up to what they thought of. Very elaborate proposals. I'm sure that not everything has been implemented, but in terms of unleashing that entrepreneurial spirit, I believe that we were able to achieve it there based on data and analytics.
Exactly. That's right.
And what I also like about what Simon said is telling your people the story of where you want to take the company. I was not there in all of your meetings, but I really have a good feel of how you are the best storyteller of that map. Remember, there's that big tarp in the training room that we
Huwag naman sanang kwentong barbero.
hindi naman kwenta. Pero may power of stories, because going back to our major topic of culture, ang culture kasi, stories eh. When a newbie is hired and listens to the stories of existing employees, what stories would people pass on? That's culture. And the leader has to start telling the right stories, which people will pass on from levels down and to the next generation of employees. I know we only had limited time, and there's so much to talk about. To our listeners, even if I've known Simon for close to 4 years now, I just spent very limited moments with him. But it's really not the quantity of time that you spend with a person. It's really the quality of time. I would facilitate their workshops, and that would be every year. I'll be with you and your manicom, Simon, before we deliver that workshop. We'll have a quick discussion of what you want to expect. But it's really seeing you in the middle of the class, listening to everybody. And you're correct, you wanted them to be courageous. From 2017 to 2018 and 2019, I really saw a lot of that in Man. And
Indeed.
Simon will only stand up after listening to everyone. Nakikita ko yung body language mo eh. So yung mga leaders dyan, ito yung dapat nating kopyahin kay Simon. Okay? I know that you want, a lot of the leaders wanted to say something at the onset because we think masyadong hahaba to. No, let's just cut this conversation short so we can move on to others. Simon's style is to really let people speak up. And you will see it in his face if he's okay. If he's not, you will also know it when he wants to have the last say. And that's EQ, that's empathizing with others, and that's also self-control, Simon. I should give it to you. I'd like to end this with again saying, you are part of my leadership idols. I tell my team that. I've also given you as an example in my workshops because you produce results. You mentioned your focus on people. Culture is at the top of your agenda. Culture and strategy. You showed the numbers as well, but apart from that, it goes back to the humble, mild-mannered, cool, calm, collected, but confident demeanor. But make no mistake, this guy's very competitive. Yes, sports-oriented yan. Alam mo naman, pag nasa sports, diba, talagang go-getter. And congratulations to your new formal role as Executive Vice President and Group Head of Consumer Lending of RCBC Bankcard. I'm sure that you will transfer your Midas touch that you exhibited in Bankcard in consumer lending of RCBC.
Thank you, Louis.
Simon, thank you so much for this opportunity. You spent an hour with us. I'm sure that a lot of our listeners who belong to middle or senior management will find your advice, your practical advice, experience-based advice worth implementing. Simon, once again, thank you. Could we just ask you to greet our listeners with "Hello, world" with that intonation, Simon? Hello, world.
Hello, world.
And that, my dear friends, is Simon Calasanz, former CEO of RCBC Bankcard, current Executive Vice President and Group Head of Consumer Lending of RCBC. I consider you a good friend of mine and my leadership idol. More power to you, Simon, and thank you for joining episode 5 of Hello, World.
Hello, world. It's been an honor. Salamat.
Salamat din, and see you around. This is Louis Banta of LJMB. Thank you for watching my video. To watch more videos like this, click subscribe and hit the bell icon below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment down below, and share it to others.